who decides which way. This reflects actually the decision-making process you already learned in the other courses. So nothing special here. What is the most interesting things? Just following the following slides in terms of diagrams. But before this, please go to slide 14 now. Net balances and budget choices. What is important here? Actually, this is not important at all. Please just skip it. Go down to 15. This is a diagram that perhaps is interesting to you. This is are the EU budget contributions state by state. 2014, 2017. This is the current. It has to do with the current budget. By the way, I don't remember if I told you that the EU is just about now to appoint the next budget. Yes, I think yesterday I told you. Now I remember. The next budget, the EU budget for the years 2021-2027. So this is now the current budget. As you can see on that slide, on that diagram, on this scheme, Germany, of course, it is a well-known fact that Germany contributes most of the money to the EU budget, and you can see how this looks like state by state, member state by member state. Now, the United Kingdom actually used to be the third, after Germany and France, the third net payer, so-called net payer to the EU budget. Now, actually, after the United Kingdom left in the end of January, there is a hole, actually. There is a hole in the EU budget. And this is why discussions this year to appoint the next budget will be very, very controversial, because there is a hole of approximately 65 billion euros in the budget, just because the United Kingdom left. This has to be, of course, compensated by all other states. Okay? Well, this is the first thing. The second thing on slide 16 is more interesting, I think. Is more interesting. There is a comment by someone. I cannot see your comments because I have my presentation. Well, now I cannot see any comment. Slide 16. Slide 16. Who wrote a comment? Just a minute. Someone. It was based on GDP. Yes, of course. I mean, of course, the amount of money to be contributed to the budget by each state is, of course, defined according to strict criteria based on the size of the national economy. And this GDP is one of the is one criteria. There are more criteria than that, and all that criteria reflect the size of the economy by each state, and this is the way to calculate the net contribution by each state. Very controversial issue within the EU. Actually, one of the reasons for the United Kingdom to leave the EU was that this was a net payer, paying more than receiving, right? Which is a poor argument, actually, because, of course, Germany provides most of the money to the budget, but on the other hand, you have a lot of different kinds of advantages if you belong to the single market. I mean, you give money to the budget more than others, but you have other kinds of advantages. Okay, this is not a single direction giving. Okay, you get much more back in other ways. Okay, so this was a very poor argument during the Brexit debate that the United Kingdom pays more than it receives. And by the way, we will see on the slides, so on two slides that follow, that the United Kingdom since the 80s forced for itself the right to get money back by everybody else, the so-called British rebate. We will see that. Although now obsolete because the United Kingdom just left, but anyway. So you can see actually the net payers are less than the ones who receive more than they pay. Okay, most of the countries in the EU, only Luxembourg, at least in these 2 years, only Luxembourg was receiving as much as it was paying. It was balanced, a balanced situation. But all others are either net payers or net receivers, right? So this is a very interesting slide, I think. If you go down now to slide 17, you will see now what is foreseen again for EU payments for agriculture. Okay, for the agriculture policy area, 21-27, these are the proposals, not yet decided, not yet appointed. And you can see that France is the country, you can see state by state, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, Poland, Romania, and Greece. So these are the countries that they get most of the money. France, much more than anybody else. Okay, agricultural subsidies actually and support from the EU. Well, slide 18. This is now the UK rebate contribution by all countries. It was is a slide from the year 2007. Meaning that the United Kingdom received back money. I mean, they paid money to the budget, and they have been receiving back money by all other states. This was the UK rebate that was launched in the mid-50s during the time that the so-called Iron Lady, Mrs. Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, used to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. She actually forced all others to accept this rule, this UK rebate. And if you go now to slide 19, you will see the formula developed by mathematicians in order to calculate this rebate state by state. British rebate calculation for... There's, I think, one more. Iron Woman, of course, yes. Iron Woman. I said Iron Man? Iron Woman. Thank you for the correction. Well, okay, so this was the formula. The formula to calculate the... well, now obsolete. Okay, now the United Kingdom left. There's no British rebate anymore. So if you go now to slide 20, you will see you have a scheme. Now you have a scheme, really. You can now understand better how the budget is appointed. Okay, this is the procedure to appoint the budget. You have everything on that slide, everything you need. Now let's start again. There are two more slides before starting again a revision of the historical development in terms of how the euro evolved. We have two more slides. 21, please, 21 slide, which changes after the Lisbon Treaty. The most significant one is, of course, the empowerment of the European Parliament in terms of appointing the budget, already discussed, actually. Otherwise, you have on that slide most of the information you need. We will not discuss a lot about this. And slide 22 is a completion of this very short overview, what is now new on the basis of the Lisbon Treaty, in the case you really need some information from that, okay? Good. For example, the 7 years multi-annual financial framework of the budget, it used to be 5 years. This is now, since 2009, the case now, 7 years. It was a discussion yesterday. Why 7 years? Okay, so I actually also already discussed most of the points here on the slide, but this is a summary of what changed after the Lisbon Treaty came into power. Well, now this is now a more detailed discussion about the euro and how the euro evolved. 23 slide, number 23, please. How the euro evolved, and just shift to slide number 24 now. Well, we had the overview, the general overview on the basis of the last presentation. Now we will see a bit more with more details exactly how the euro evolved. Actually, the whole thing begins in already 1969. 1969, at the very early stage of EU integration, with the so-called Werner report. Werner was a German guy. This is not Werner, but Werner report, 1969. Okay. This is, I mean, if you go through and you read what was foreseen in the Werner report, you will realize that all of that has in the end been realized with the Treaty of Maastricht, or by the Treaty of Maastricht. Until 1999, until the year in which the euro was finally adopted, legally adopted. So it lasted for 30 years, all in all, until the common currency was accepted by the majority of the member states of the EU. Okay? So this is the beginning of the whole story, the Werner Report 1969. Now please go to slide 25, the European monetary system. We have been discussing also on the basis of the last presentation about this, the European monetary system, 79-98. So in real terms, it took 20 years to realize this project, in real terms, because the Werner Report was just a blueprint. It was just a plan, a very general plan. So in real terms, it lasted for 20 years to realize this project, the project of a common currency in the EU. We have been discussing about the European monetary system already, about exchange rate, the exchange rate mechanism. So this is nothing new. We can go on with the slides. Slide 26. We have been already discussing also about this point regarding the turbulences that the EMS suffered in the late 80s, with significant disparities regarding 4 national currencies in the EU at the time. If you go, please, now to 27. Actually, we have some more details here about what was discussed already regarding the dominance of Germany in this process of establishing a common currency. In terms of the credibility of this of the EMS, we already discussed a lot, I think, about the Bundesbank being actually the model according to which the European Central Bank was established. So about anti-inflation policies, very important to German economic policies. We have been discussing about all of that already. This is why we will shift to 22. Well, and this has to do with the so-called 1992 initiative. The EU countries have tried to achieve greater internal economic unity by fixing mutual exchange rates, EMS, okay, fixed exchange rates, direct measures to encourage the free flow of goods, services, and factors of production. And this was actually established for the first time within the single market on the basis of the legal basis of the Single European Act of 1986, which came into power in 1987. Okay, this was actually also discussed already, but it's better to have more again and again, either the same information or with a bit more details in order to to use it for your assignments. And by the way, again, I will remind you the recommended method on how to prepare your assignments, regardless of homeworks or the final exam. By the way, before closing this project, please remind me during the last session to set a date for the final exam, okay? Or to propose you the date of the final exam. I will give you again some days, not a single day. I will give you more than 3 days to prepare this. So don't worry. And now the comments are coming like thunderstorm. Positive comments, I hope, about the final exam, okay? Well, I will propose you during the last session about the dates of the final exam. Will be dates, not a date, because this will be again a take home and open book exam, like the homeworks too. So don't worry about the final exam, but we have to set it during the last session of this course. If tomorrow, I'm not sure, perhaps Wednesday or Thursday even, we will see. Well, and again, the recommended way how to do that, assignments, again, you have approximately in mind what was discussed during the class now. So if it is a question about a specific subject, you will go first to the slides, perhaps to both presentations, because the one was a bit general. This has a bit more details. You can have more details on the basis of this one. So you have the slides as a frame, general frame, on the basis of which you can extend your answers to the questions either in the homeworks or in the final exam. Well, now, what comes now is also important. This is a very, very important step. Please go to slide now 29. Very important step towards a common currency in Europe, in the European Union, namely the 1989 published Delors report. Delors used to be at the time the French president of the European Commission. And this was actually the then launched by the Treaty of Maastricht. The then launched monetary union actually was based on the Delors report. So you can understand that this was really a very important report, a very important plan that was fully realized just 2 or 3 years later on the basis of the Maastricht Treaty. So this is a very important obstacle to be taken towards the common currency, the Delors report, and really initiated concrete policies in order to realize this. On slide 30, you have some more information about that, about the 3 stages of the Delors plan. All of them actually fully implemented. So we will not now discuss about them because actually we already discussed about them. Okay, so you have now more information here, slide 30, 31, how this plan by Mr. Delors was realized. Well, and this goes down to slide 32. These 3 slides, 30, 31, 32, they contain more information, specific information on how the Delors report was finally realized and what was the intention behind it. Freedom of capital movements, which is fully realized within the single market, political stability of Europe, okay, this has to be discussed, not fully realized. I mean, this is obvious, especially after the crisis. There was not political stability in the EU, or during the crisis at least. And we will be discussing about the crisis, I guess, today. So these 3 slides, you have more information about this process of the realization of the Delors plan. Now, if you go down to slide 33, this slide now contains actually information you already know, right? Especially budget discipline, already discussed, very detailed discussed already in this class in the last days, and also discussed that the Stability and Growth Pact of the EU fully failed, right? You remember our discussion. Is there a comment? Yes, exactly. You remember all of that? Well, now this is now a discussion about the pact. A very, a more detailed discussion about. Although we already discussed about this, but anyway, you have now, as of slide 34, as of slide 34, you have now a more detailed discussion about, or some more information about the Stability and Growth Pact. Okay. Which again, this was, you remember, this was launched, this was not foreseen in this specific form by the Maastricht Treaty, but was launched actually in 1997 by the Treaty of Amsterdam, right? Okay, you have some more information here about the Stability and Growth Pact, but failed just because there was no effective monitoring regarding especially fiscal policies, and there was no punishment. So without punishment, no sometimes respect, unfortunately. Well, now on slide 35, you have some more information about the ECB members and the system of central banks. A bit more information, not that detailed, but anyway, you have some more information here, actually also already discussed. And now finally on slide 36, you have an overview about how the euro is spread as a currency across Europe. Okay, this is a good overview. This slide provides a good overview. Blue, deep blue color. In deep blue color, you can see this, the member states that already adopted the euro. The latest development during the crisis, the Baltic states adopted the euro during the crisis, so this is significant. Although the euro was in crisis, there have been countries interested, fully interested, strongly interested to adopt the common currency. And you can see, so this is the blue is the euro area. Currencies that are pegged to the euro, so fixed exchange rates, okay? Denmark and Bulgaria. And floating currency, okay, now Britain left. Floating currency, Sweden, Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, Hungary, Croatia. These actually the only countries, remaining countries, that didn't yet adopt the euro. Not because some of them, of course, because they are not in the position yet, they do not fulfill the criteria. Other countries like Sweden, because they decided, it's a political decision, not to enter the euro yet. But the former president of the European Commission, Mr. Juncker, Jean-Claude Juncker, that just stepped down, said that the plan is for all countries, that all countries of the EU will join the euro. This is the final, should be the final step of unification in the monetary union. Well, now slide 37, free to move, the Schengen Treaty. I inserted this slide here because the Schengen Treaty, the Schengen Treaty, of course, has to do at first place with the free movement of people within the Union, right? But of course, it also has an economic impact because at the same time makes easier also the movement of products, not only of persons. So if there is a problem with the Schengen Treaty, as it is the case now, because there was a question by Mohammed, by the way, yesterday night, I just answered him today because I was busy with booking. I didn't have time yesterday night for detailed answers or for answers. Anyway, I answered him that because just now Germany is closing the borders again, as it was the case 2015 because of migration. You remember? We'll be discussing about this. Now closes the borders because of the virus to all countries around Germany. Border control again. Exactly. There's a comment. A comment. Yes, exactly. There was a comment by Mohammed. Of course, and by securing at the same time that this will not affect, explicitly explaining that this will not affect the movement of products, because this goes together. If there are border controls and the Schengen Treaty is abolished for a specific period of time, of course, you cannot abolish the Schengen Treaty once you have signed and ratified it, okay? You can abolish it because of specific conditions within a short period of time. And this was the case also in 2015 because of migration, because of uncontrolled migration. And this is the case now. It started yesterday, just yesterday. And this will be extended, by the way. Borders, not only land borders, but also airports, in terms of people coming via air into the country. This will also be abolished, closed, I'm afraid. Until the end of the week, we will see. Perhaps that Germany will also let the biggest two airports in Germany open, namely Frankfurt and Munich. All others, or perhaps Düsseldorf, perhaps, or Berlin also. These 2 or 3 or 4, but not more than that. I think everything will close for a month. And you know, the problem is I can't go to Athens from here, from Cyprus. There are some flights, very expensive in the meanwhile, much less than it used to be the case, but with decreasing prices, with horrible prices in the meanwhile. I can go to Athens, but what should I do in Athens? I mean, I will just stay in the apartment together with my mother or my sister. Everything is closed. There's nobody outside. No bars, no restaurants, nothing, no cafes. Everything's closed. So, I don't know. Anyway, now, guys, this is now what I told you in the beginning of the course, of the session today, not of the course, of the today's session. If you go please down to 38, number 38, okay? This is now a chapter about the optimum currency area. Well, let me explain you the following. First of all, if you go to the materials I gave you in the last semester on that course now, on economic integration, you will see books. You will find the books, a subfolder with books, and you will find also a subfolder with 12 different PowerPoint presentations. The main book of this course in Düsseldorf, as far as I know, from the lady that teaches the course in Düsseldorf, the main course book is the book you see on that slide, 38, by Baldwin and Wyplosz, the Economics of European Integration. This is the basic book. is a huge book of around 900 pages. And this is, you can find this book in the materials I gave you. Okay? On the top of that, which is very helpful for your studies, at least in Düsseldorf, not for this course, you will find in a subfolder, as I told you, 12 different PowerPoint presentations. And these PowerPoint presentations are presentations from that book. And these are PowerPoint presentations prepared by the authors themselves, by Baldwin and Wyplos. So chapter by chapter, you will find all presentations chapter by chapter of that book in the subfolder with these 12 different PowerPoint presentations. I had to add here, and plus this is a secret among us, I downloaded these presentations, PowerPoint presentations, illegally sometime. Not me, a Turkish friend of mine, good in technical skills, found somewhere this in the internet, these PowerPoint presentations, downloaded them, and this is why I provide you with these materials in order to facilitate your work, at least for the ones that will go to Düsseldorf in this course. I'm sure the lady that teaches the course in Düsseldorf does not have these presentations I give you. Okay? So this is a secret among us. Okay? Well, is somebody saying thank you? Yes, thank you. It is a pleasure. It is a pleasure. No problem. Well, it is a pleasure. I found them. I give you them. I mean, this didn't cost me anything. Now, what is important? It's very important. Counter, by the way, in the course in this is this part of the discussion about the euro. The reason is very simple. There is, since the late 50s, if I'm right, is an older theory. It's not a new theory. Since the late 50s, there is a theory, economic theory. By the way, are actually the conditions to be fulfilled so that a common currency can function well. This is, in very short terms, what an optimum currency area theory is. Okay? And this theory is very important because on the basis of this theory, we can evaluate if the euro fulfills the criteria described by the theory since then, in terms of if the euro is in the position to be, let's say, a good currency, right? And the outcome of this evaluation, just in order to anticipate it, the outcome of this evaluation on the basis of the optimum currency area, in terms of if the euro fulfills the criteria of this theory and is thus a good currency, the outcome is the euro, to a great extent, does not fulfill the criteria of this theory. So the euro does not fulfill the very criteria describing what are the conditions to be fulfilled in order that the currency can work well. Guys, this is at least what the theory says. The theory says the euro is not in the position the architecture of the euro is not in the position to fulfill the criteria set by this theory in terms of a common currency working well. This is what it is about. And we will be discussing a bit more about this. It is about the economic crisis in the EU, the financial crisis, not economic, but also economic, of course, to a great extent, in the EU, because I will be discussing about this in a bit more details later on, because one of the reasons for the euro, for the financial crisis in the Eurozone, 2010, 18, or 16, let's say, one of the reasons was, and this is enough evidence, is enough analysis by different scholars, not scholars, but by different analysts, journalists, whatever you want. There's enough evidence that the euro does not fulfill, or one of the reasons for the financial crisis was the problematic, at least if not deficient, let's say problematic architecture of the euro, of the common currency in the EU. Now, regarding this theory, you can have a look, please. It starts on slide 38 and goes down to slide 52. 52. So, you know, in the last slide, 52, you see there, is Europe an optimum currency area? And of course, Europe is not an optimum currency area. And you can see the reasons why. Okay? But this is not something to be discussed in this course. This is a preparation, or I would like to make you aware about what will be taught within this course in Düsseldorf. Okay? But you have, at least now, you have both this information on my slides here, in this presentation, short information about the theory of optimum currency area, and you have additionally also the slides, as I told you, the slides of the authors of the main book, course book in Düsseldorf. Okay, so but you have to keep in mind, and this is very important, that and we will get back to that if it is about during the discussion about the financial crisis, which actually just follows on slide 54. You will keep in mind that according to this theory, the euro was never in the position, neither before was launched, nor after it came into power, so to say, was never in the position to fulfill this criteria. It was from the very beginning, and this was obvious to everybody, also to EU politicians, that the euro, the architecture of the euro is problematic. Well, now I inserted one more element in this presentation, namely solidarity in practice on slide 53. Okay, we shift now to slide 53. Solidarity in practice. Okay, the EU cohesion policy. This slide, on that slide, you have some more information about the second biggest part of the budget, namely the structural funds. You remember yesterday, right? Agriculture, the first one, second one, structural funds. Money to be spent, in other words, money to be spent for different development projects across the EU. And you have now more information here. And this is actually solidarity in practice within the EU. This is solidarity in practice. Definitely. There is solidarity in the EU, for God's sake, still today. Institutionalized, by the way, solidarity. In terms of structural funds to be used in order to improve structures within the EU in different states in need of additional financial means to realize important projects. Okay, so this is solidarity in practice. The EU cohesion policy. I have to, to add this slide because it is a very important point. But during the crisis and after the crisis, especially during the crisis, which now follows on slide 54, there was a lot of things, but solidarity is lacking a lot within the EU. It holds true during the crisis. We'll be discussing later on the first interest of the lenders, of the one who borrowed money to the countries under debt problems, was not, of course, to help them at first place. It was, as I already told you, actually, the first consideration by them, by the lenders, by the borrowers of money, that countries in the south of Europe, the first consideration was, of course, to secure that their own banks and their own money lenders won't get bankrupt through the crisis at first place. Okay, so solidarity was lacking. They didn't provide money because they wanted to save Greece and Portugal. They provided money first place at the time, at least, because they wanted to save their banks of getting bankrupt. Well, now this is the last 10 slides. We have 10 slides here. Perhaps I will close this presentation today, so we will have a last session finally tomorrow. Okay, we will need some more time than 1 hour, but this is not a problem, I guess. Well, now, regarding the financial crisis, what the EU did, most importantly, what the EU did because of the financial crisis, in order to solve the crisis, not only to solve the crisis as such, but also to establish structures that will definitely help if there is again a crisis. Okay, this is the most important aspect. To solve the crisis on the one hand, but also to secure that if one more comes in the future, one more crisis, we are in the position to better face this crisis in the future. Very important point. Now, on slide 55, financial crisis and what the EU did. The fiscal side. We have fiscal side, macroeconomic side, growth side, institutional side. Okay? So, fiscal side. First of all, let me please, very, very shortly describe how it came to this crisis. Already discussed actually during the last session, yesterday and 2 days ago, on the basis of we have been discussing about the global financial crisis starting in the US in 2008 and how this affected finally Europe in terms of countries, member states of the EU in high debt problems, Greece especially. We discussed this, right? There's no need to discuss it again. But I would like to add the following regarding this overall frame discussion about the financial crisis. As I told you before, just 5 minutes ago, one of the factors that led to this crisis was definitely the problematic architecture of the euro as such, as a common currency. Again, there's enough evidence according to the theory on optimum currency area that the euro is problematic, okay, as a common currency. No. Now, one of the best books, I follow the situation, I follow developments step by step, very closely, every day. There was a time between 2010 and 2015 I was following developments day by day. I read a lot of things, articles, analysis, in journals, books, etc. In my eyes, the best book I ever read, and this is included in your materials, you will find in your materials. The best book I ever read was by a Greek guy in the United Kingdom. The name of him is Jason Manolopoulos. That wrote a book. By the way, he's not a scholar. He's a broker in the city, in London. a broker, okay? Not an economist, actually, in real terms. A broker. A very clever broker, by the way, because in my eyes he really wrote the best book about the financial crisis, especially in terms of the Greek crisis, okay? Which was actually it was the kernel, actually, of the crisis in the end. By arguing the following, three things. He pointed out three things. Actually, this book starts with the comparison between Argentina and Greece. Argentina got bankrupt in 2000. And he describes exactly what is common in terms of the political system, because this is the problem, really the problem, finally. Structures of the political system, peculiarities of the political system in Greece, and made a comparison between Argentina, that got bankrupt with Greece, and actually was able to show in a very good way, on the basis of a very good analysis, that there are commonalities between the political system of Argentina that led to this bankruptcy some years before the Greek one. Okay? A very good analysis. This is also a point of mine, because I also published some things about this. I published an article, unfortunately German, showing that the current crisis, because I published this article in 2014, I think, amid the crisis, by the way. In other words, I was able to show that the current crisis, the Greek crisis, the financial crisis, is not a crisis of 2015. Does not go back only just some years. It goes back to the 19th century. I started to explain the political system, the Greek political system, right away after the Greek independent state was established in 1832. This is the point where I started, even a bit earlier. So you have to understand how the political system works, what are the basic structures of this political system, in order to understand the current crisis. And the main element of this political system, of course, is because we have been speaking about corruption a lot, right? But which type of corruption? Why corruption? In which terms? And it is very easy it is easily said. The political system was based on the so-called system of clientelism. Okay? This is actually what I try to make clear, to analyze clientelism, how clientelism worked within the frame of the political system in Greece, and why this finally led to the crisis 2010. By the way, this was not the only bankruptcy in Greece. The first bankruptcy already happened in 1896. 1896, at the end of the 19th century. By the way, 1896 is the year in which there's a comment. In Greece, I speak about Greece. 1896 was the year in which my grandmother was born. Died in 1997, aged 101. So this is not a new phenomenon, and this is based not always on clientelism, on, let's say, political corruption always, but this was actually, until 2010, there have been 3 different bankruptcies in Greece. Because of different reasons, of course, not only because of clientelism, but in order to understand better what happens after the democratic political system in Greece was restored in 1974. You have to understand better the political system in terms of clientelism from the 19th century to the 20th century, and then, of course, after early 2000. Well, so this is what this guy, Jason Manolopoulos, did in his book, and he tried to explain the crisis. And this actually this is why, in my eyes, this is the most convincing argument by him. Not everybody was, from that I have read in 10 years, not everybody was in the position to explain the crisis, because this guy, Jason Manolopoulos, knew very well what is the political system in Greece. The other analysis didn't have any idea about Greece and how the political system works. And this is why he was in the position to better explain. This is why he concentrated on three factors that led to the crisis. The first one, again, was the political system in the country as such. The Greek political system, already discussed right now, okay? The second factor that led to the crisis, according to Jason Manolopoulos, was, again, the deficient architecture of the euro as such, on the basis again of, because he uses in order to explain this. And by the way, you will find in his book, if it's about the optimum currency area, the theory of the optimum currency area, you will find in his book much more details, very, very good, simple explanations and lists about this criteria, this theory. Okay, get back to his book if it's about this. So the second factor that he explains that led to the crisis was the problematic architecture of the euro. And finally, and this was something that was not that discussed, was my impression at the time, and he discusses a lot about this, because this is actually his job. He's a broker, right? And he asks, very simply asks, who borrowed this small economy, Greek economy, $500 billion. Who borrowed that money to this country, to this small economy? Of course, the international financial markets, the investment capital. So he defines the investment capital as the third sector, the global investment capital as the third sector that contributed to that crisis, by asking this simple question: who was that? Who was that borrowed that country so much money? Okay, I explained already that before the crisis, you remember the golden era of liquidity, 2000, 2008, and during this era of high liquidity, and this is actually the period about which he also speaks in the book. During that period, the financial markets, the investment capital, borrowed all that money to that country. Okay? So this is actually a very short discussion about the crisis and how the crisis came about, and what have been the real reasons and factors behind the crisis. Again, three basic factors, reasons, the political system in the country. Because now we concentrate, of course, only on Greece, but because again, what is the difference with Greece during the financial crisis is that it has to do with the overall state debt, okay, high debt. In the other countries, it has less to do with that, but much more with the bank system in the country, especially in Ireland. There was a danger of the bank system to be collapsed. This was the reason, mostly the reason in other countries, but not in Greece. In Greece, at first place, it was high debt, the reason of the crisis. Okay, this is why I now concentrate more on Greece and less on the other countries. Because, by the way, to be honest, I also have more experience about Greece and not about Portugal, let's say. Okay, so this is why I can, reconstruct better. Also, by reading this book by Jason Manolopoulos, reconstruct better what are the real reasons behind the Greek crisis, at least. Okay? Well, now, our last point, and we will close with that, I think in 15 minutes, we will close this presentation, is about what the EU did during the crisis, especially after the crisis, in order to stabilize the monetary union, and stabilize, of course, economy within the EU. Finally. And you will see all this information. You have all this information on slides 55 to 64. Okay? To 64. Well, now I will summarize now. Slide 55. I will summarize. Well, the first thing that was done was to strengthen, of course, the failed Stability and Growth Pact. This was strengthened finally in May 2013. Okay. But there is, after all, after these slides, what was done on the fiscal side, what was done on the macroeconomic side, in order to overcome the crisis and so on and so forth. Finally, you have a catalog, a list in the end, what was really done in terms of new institutions that have been launched in order to better face the crisis and better face future crises in the year, financial crisis in the year. So now this is the most important thing in the fiscal side, better monitoring on the basis of a more effective Stability and Growth Pact as of May 2013. On slide 56, on the macroeconomic side, a new framework for the surveillance and timely correction of macroeconomic imbalances. Now we have a more effective system in terms of surveillance and correction of wrong developments in terms of macroeconomic developments in the monetary union, in order to also, indicators to do that. You see all this information in the second paragraph on that slide. What are the indicators that tell us what is going on within the national economy, namely, and then in the end creates macroeconomic imbalances that have to be faced, namely trade, international investment, labor cost, private, public debt, house prices, unemployment, and so on and so forth. We have different indicators to be analyzed in order to understand what is going on at the microeconomic level within every country that participates in the monetary union. On slide 57, there is an additional side that has to do with growth. Okay, now this is a bit controversial. Europe 2020 was not actually realized to that extent. Now, by the way, already discussed. Now, by the coronavirus crisis, we again face growth problems in all over the EU as a whole, but also national economies. So the Europe 2020 plan to boost growth. Someone asked something because I didn't have time to see the comment or the question. Was the US cuts rates to 0? Yes. They reduced the interest to zero in order to. I mean now because of the coronavirus, the Federal Reserve announced yesterday or today, I think, that they will reduce the interest to zero in order to boost the economy. I mean, to pump more money into the market. Yes, support investment. Very simply. Well, on the institutional side, what was done institutionally, you have more information on that slide, but this is not now. The most important thing in my eyes is what follows on slide 58. Let's go to slide 58. This is what you have to learn, actually. Okay, in simple terms. The key elements of the new governance framework within the monetary union. This is a very, very important chapter, guys. And this will be a question either in one of the assignments, either in the homeworks or in the final exam, about this issue. The key elements of the new governance framework in the monetary union. So, first of all, there's a new institution which is called the European semester. And you will understand what this semester is if you go down to the key stages of the European semester. In January, the Commission issues its annual growth survey